Hi, welcome back to Roadmap, the Auto Trader podcast for all things product and tech. This episode, I've got some awesome colleagues from our test engineering discipline. Okay, so I've got Hannah, who co-leads test engineering. I've got Neil, a principal test engineer, ex-dev. And I've got one of our most recent hires, Biswa, a senior test engineer. Hello, people.
Hello.
Hello, Pete.
Cool. Right, I'm going to kick off then, because I am a bit stuck in the 90s, as we all know. And I'm not quite sure what a test engineer is, even though I work with you three. So if you could explain just what test engineer is, and I'll kick off with you, Hannah.
Yeah, so I'll try my best to do this justice. So a test engineer is someone on their product team who is championing, promoting, prioritising all things test engineering. So for me to better explain what test engineering is, if we take a step back, I'll try and explain what software testing is. So software testing is trying to do different approaches, different things that you can do, different tools that you can use to try and gain feedback about whatever it is your team are building. So that could be a back-end service, it could be something more UI based. So you're doing certain activities and using certain tools to gain feedback about how that is behaving, and you're using that to build your confidence to know whether it's behaving as you expect it to, as you hope it to, probably a better way of putting it. So yeah, that's such a high level explanation, so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
But so a test engineer is someone who utilises engineering practices to really supercharge what and how much you can achieve in that test engineering space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that where the engineering in the name versus test analyst comes in? So is it more about the code that you're building around the code that's being built?
So the code that you're writing to build to write automated tests, that definitely that's part of the engineering part for me. And I suppose ultimately you're creating those tests, you're writing those scripts so that you can perform repetitive tasks over and over again, that normally in the past we would have had to do manually. It would have taken up quite a lot of our time. So you are doing things like that, automating your regression to get feedback about how your software or whatever it is you're building is behaving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Neil?
So I've had a bit of a journey towards test engineering, and maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we started thinking more about how we could automate testing as a group of the development community, the testing community. We started to automate more and more tests. We wrote unit tests, we wrote E2E tests, and this was great. It was huge progress, but it also gave us a fair share of problems. We found some of the tests were quite brittle. They used to fail a lot when there was no problem, and gradually over the last number of years, we've been trying to improve that process, and I think test engineering is a logical outcome of that. We are trying to become more acquainted with better engineering techniques that enable us to write a better range of tests that give us better, more reliable coverage of the software, so that we can just automate a lot more of the testing process and deliver more quickly.
And what about yourself, Biswa?
Yeah, I think I've always seen test engineer as someone who would go look at the product from broader perspective, just not from a closed testing perspective. Who would go understand the product, how it behaves, and what are the set user requirements, business requirements, how a user would use that product for us, and then use those testing eyes to look into the product and find out those flaws, or if any kinds of something which is not meeting those set standards, and then how you can contribute to the team or the product to make it a best quality one, something which will be easier for the users to use. Accessibility is one of them, like making sure it's accessible to everyone and each of them. So those are the set standards, and you have got a lot of testing tools as well, how you can utilize those tools at different layers of testing to test those things and make it in an automated manner, as well as having a manual approach to that as well, so covering it in order to make the product a best one.
Cool.
Yeah.
And when I've been here too many years, But when did we start to make that move from into test engineering from whatever was before? Because I remember the word was mentioned maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 years ago. I remember people talking about it in frameworks they were working in, but I still didn't have a concept. Was there a point where we actually consciously made the move towards test engineering?
I think it'll have happened before I joined. I've been here nearly 6 years, and so I was the first tester who was hired who had the job title test engineer. But when I joined, I think, what did we have? Were we still using Selenium then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Neil will have been here when
Yeah.
that.
So I was a developer at the time, and shortly after that, I was quite interested in testing, and shortly after that I took the plunge and decided to become a test engineer.
So Hannah joined.
Yeah.
You're the first. I didn't know you're the first.
Yeah.
First woman.
Yeah.
That's cool, isn't it?
I didn't realise
The
until
first
I was
one with the
here.
job title.
Yeah. So I was the first person with a test engineer job title, but we had some automated tests in place, and it was Selenium, and I do remember it was in a not so particularly nice state. Is a polite way of putting it. They were quite flaky. Quite a lot of the devs didn't have faith. The tests weren't really doing a good job in building confidence in how our products are behaving. So that was quite a big task to come into and try and make things better. So it must have been 7, 8 years
Right.
ago,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
And did you join the? I'm going to call it practice discipline. Did you then make the move, Neil? Is that when you flipped out of dev and showed the interest in the test engineering space?
Yeah, shortly after that, I'd been interested in testing for a long time because I felt the automated tests. I felt it was a huge leap forward having the automated tests. They did make delivery easier. They did, run through a lot of tests more quickly than any manual tester could. But yet they seemed to be somehow incomplete. We didn't seem to be getting as much out of them as we could. So that's what prompted me to make the move. And I spoke to Thomas's team on the portal, and they said they could benefit from some improved testing practice, and I thought, well, that sounds like an interesting challenge, writing good browser tests, because I think writing these automated tests is actually very difficult. It's a challenge for anyone to write.
Yeah. What about yourself then, Biswa? Did you go straight into test engineering? I mean, I know you've had a career before a trader, so if you flip to the beginning, how did you get into it?
Yeah, Pete, I think I have a funny story for this one. I remember 4 years of my college, I was trained on a electrical and electronics engineer, so technically I should have been an electrical and electronics engineer. But during my final years of job search days, I realized I was back in India. There's a digital boom across the industry, and I saw it as a wonderful opportunity for me to get there and code something and see it as a career role as well. And that's when I learned some coding, gave a few interviews, and I landed on my first company, which was Mindtree back in India. I've been working with them for over 3 years, and then got a lovely opportunity. BBC was one of our clients, so moved here working with them. So it was majorly around the testing of mobile applications and all that. So that's what I got to understand how it has been. So for me, since the inception of my career, it has always been testing. So I've seen growing in layers, like how the testing has improvised, how the tools and technologies have changed over the years. It's been now 6-7 years, lovely years, and from there to being an auto trader, again getting to be aware of newer tools and how you can implement this across projects, learn them and help others, and the journey has been really amazing in terms of that.
Cool. No, it is super interesting. I mean, I've got probably two similar questions on this. So if I was a test analyst now, not that I'm a test analyst, but if I was, what kind of areas would I need to start to push into to sort of make that move towards test engineering? I know it's not like an overnight step, but is there particular areas that, like, where you'd maybe change your focus or double down on particular areas that maybe today as a test analyst I'd be doing differently?
So I would start with coding skills, maybe in a variety of languages like Java, TypeScript, because that's how a lot of our tests are written. We're starting to get test engineers to look more at lower levels of testing. So historically, developers would write lots of tests, test analysts would write lots of tests, but the two didn't really always communicate. So the test analysts weren't always aware of what the developers were testing. So we suggest people take more of an interest in the lower level tests and understand that technology a little bit more. Nobody's going to ask them to write a Spring application, but it's useful if they have a little bit of an understanding of how that all hangs together. Testing technologies, things like contract testing, that's an area we're starting to explore more and more. So technologies like PACT and even other forms of contract testing, and Cypress, and web frameworks, web testing, browser testing is quite a difficult, tricky area. Also things like jest testing. So wide variety of testing technologies, really. Accessibility testing, there are plugins that we can use to test that. So yeah, those are the main technology areas I'd be looking at.
Yeah, there's a lot. As someone who's gone from a test analyst, I was a test analyst for maybe about 4 or 5 years. So for someone who's gone from being a test analyst, I couldn't write any code. I was doing constant manual regression before every software release that we did, and it was quite boring. Yes. So there was that drive to just thinking there's got to be a different way. It's quite slow, it's quite laborious, it's quite boring for the people involved doing that manual regression over and over again. Learning about test engineering and thinking, right, I'm gonna have to teach myself to code, which is quite a daunting thing to task yourself with. But it is like all the things that we've just listed there. I think I was just very focused on the end-to-end UI tests that that was the first thing I really got my teeth into, and then it is like it just snowballs from there. You realise there's so many other layers of testability and so many different automated tests that you can create, and each one of them gives you a different amount of confidence that what you're building software wise is actually behaving as you want it to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
so is it, I mean, this is just me in my own head. So you've got to obviously be interested in testing, because obviously that is the overall thing we're doing. But then it sounds like you've got to have a strong interest in and want to be able to code as well. Is it which is the bit that overrides? Is it like, I want to be a tester first, but I want to be coding? Because I mean, like, this is where the blurred line between engineer, like a dev as well. So where is that? What's the difference in the mindset? Is there a difference in the mindset?
I think it all, whichever side you're leaning onto more, that it all should feed back into improving something, or thinking about the overall quality of what your team are trying to build, what they're trying to produce. But that's what it can always boil down to for me. But I do think it is good for someone to have a really good, solid understanding of what testing actually is. Yeah. Because you could be writing loads and loads of automated tests, but if you don't truly know what those tests are trying to achieve, it could really get out of hand, and they might not be particularly useful. Okay. Yeah.
So I lean towards the coding end of the spectrum. I think there's quite a lot of room for both. I think the two skills complement each other. Some people are more interested in what the application does and, how did you do it. Some people are more interested in the nuts and bolts of the coding. I'm probably more interested in the nuts and bolts of the coding, but I think that's useful because I get to help other people with that aspect of the tests. Making the tests more reusable, trying to make the tests more reliable. Almost acting as a bit of a consultant with helping people write tests.
Right. What about yourself, Biswa? Where do you sit on that sort of spectrum?
I think I have a similar view. So when I talk about testing, it's not something very specific to the IT industry. It's generally across all the industries where you do kind of testing. Just it doesn't have to be anything code related. That's just even when you mention the word testing, it's quite broader than what we even think of. It's just not anything limited to any one particular industry or domain. So so there's a thin line to it. Obviously, where would you like to be, a tester or when you want a coder? But when you get that test engineer tag to yourself or an analyst tag, you have to look at the product, and then you have to think about how do I make this product useful to the consumer? How do I make it one of those top quality products, one of those biggest flagship products? First, we have to think about them, and then it's about how do you list what are the tools do we have in place to make those things useful for us, use them, and if something can be contributed to improve the quality. So that's what it is, and it just doesn't has to be purely coding, but it's about understanding the product, what a user would need, and how you can use different kind of tools which have gone in my particular testing world, and how I can use them at different layers to make it one. So that's where the line you have to decide as an engineer. So, and that comes with experience. As you keep working, you get an idea about which layers to use, which tools to use. You consult with your mentors, colleagues, seniors as well, and then you come up to an approach, define, like we have a thing in AutoTrader, we have a test strategy which is set defined, like how we would go in a project and approach that product and how we would test it. So it's that balance we have to maintain to get to that final result.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about the sort of the domain expertise as well till you mentioned it then. So is that where, looking in your particular day jobs, like Neil, you're doing a lot, like you say, the consultancy pairing, but Hannah and Biswa, you're like in particular domains. So do you have to develop really deep understanding of the domain, the product you're working in, to make those decisions alongside the which frameworks or which where to put your most bang for your buck?
I think for me, it has been, again, I would say, like an amazing journey. When I got this opportunity to work with AutoTrader, and I came to work for one of those biggest flagship products, Deal Builder. So when I came in, Hannah was there guiding me how to go about the process, or what are the things we follow in AutoTrader, how to do it. That's when I met Neil as well. And so for me, Deal Builder being such a huge product with so many verticals in, it was very important for me to understand that product before I could jump in and show my skills of testing. So that's where I have to have that domain experience. And now down the line, it's been more than 1.5 years now. Having that experience helps me mentor other people as well. If someone who is very new to Deal Builder, different teams are working on it. It's just not limited to any one particular team. It helps me guide them, explain them. So you over the years, as you keep working more and more, you get that domain experience, and then people would know, like, where's the who can be a point of contact to help on those. And so it surely is really helpful when you're working in such a big organization to have that expertise as well.
Yeah, it's such a, I know we focus quite a lot about the coding aspect of our job, but we're so broad across a lot of the layers of the development life cycle. So even at the start, when we can't really write any automated test against something, we will still be there asking questions about, well, what if this happens, and just trying to uncover some unknowns, like the edge cases and things like that, when a product the devs haven't even started writing the code. So we're involved quite early on in the process, and we can't rely on any tools, any code. Then we have to we just have to rely on ourselves then, and our own brains. So it is quite a contrast, really. So going from the start of something being developed to the later down the line where it's being released, it's out in the wild. We've even got automated tests there to tell us, yes, it's still behaving as you intend it to, the product's still running, it's still working. But to me, that's such a broad spectrum of things that we have to consider and get involved with, but it's part of the nice thing about the job. I think
you mentioned, though, something, Biswa, you mentioned collaboration, and I think that's a really important part of the job, because I think we've probably got better at collaboration, and that means collaborating with developers in your team, just maybe getting a better understanding of other levels of testing and what they can do, and collaborating with other members of the test engineering community to spread skills and good practices. So I think we have got better at collaboration. I would say that's probably a key part of the test engineer, because as you just touched on, Hannah, it's a very, very broad, there's a lot to look into, so you need that collaboration.
Because we don't just work with the developers, it would be product owners, delivery people, delivery
those delivery people, those pesky delivery people.
Delivery leads and designers. So there's all those different aspects of things that come together, and we've got to change our styles and approach for each of those different disciplines, and it's a varied job.
Cool. So I was going to ask a different question, but I'm going to go to something you said. So what is then? There's two questions. What is probably your favourite thing about being a test engineer, and then conversely, what's the thing that frustrates you most? Like, you know, without like calling me out or anything like that, but you know what I mean. Like what? Because it is the like. I think you sound like you're all for different things. Like, you know, float your boat. So I'll start with Biswa. What's your favourite thing about being a test engineer?
I think it's going to be a bit spicy one for me. So putting that tester hat on. So when I get a product for me and to look into it, and it's approaching those stages where we are about to release in a month's time to live. That's when I put my tester's hat more deeper into it, into the product, and start finding out those issues, flagging out those issues. That's where the testing mode gets activated in me, and I like, come on, I need to find few issues for the team and like show them like these can be major showstoppers as well for the users. So it can be annoying to the other team members, but from when I see from a user perspective, it's like something commendable, like finding that big bug before it goes into the production.
Yeah.
So and that's a major win for the team as well later down, that we have got one less bug and the product is more of finished quality. So I think I do get in that zone, and I try to find those more issues as well.
I'd be really interested to see what Biswa looks like when he's in the zone. Does he wear like, you know, special hat or something like that?
There's a hidden hat.
So what about yourself, Hannah? Best thing. Well, we'll come on to worst things or challenges.
What I like the most is working together as a team and trying to build something that's going to be that's going to help someone or be really useful for someone to use, and then working together as a team and trying to improve and just try and improve it. Yeah, sort of like what Biswa said, but less sinister. Yeah, that's what I like the most, and yeah, it's the whole team aspect of it, and building something that's cool.
Sounds good. What about yourself, Neil?
So I think for me, it's reducing complexity of the tech estate. So I think traditionally our tests have been quite complex, and that's understandable, because if someone asks for a feature, then you know the test paths will probably come up with 5 or 6 different paths and test those different paths, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 different paths. So that means you have an awful lot more complexity in your test estate, and you've got a lot of complexity around setting up data. So what's happened over the last 10 or so years is our test estate's become a lot more complex than our actual coding estate. And I think for me the challenge and the satisfaction is making a difference in reducing that complexity, creating tests that people can work with, people can understand easily, and people can use, and tests that are reliable. But it's that reducing the complexity is the thing that really interests me, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely a level of satisfaction of making something simpler and easier for people to use and understand, and then having your tests be way more useful and robust. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Which makes me sound like I enjoy sitting in isolation, reducing the complexity, but I enjoy the things that you've talked about, working with a team. I enjoy working with other people, the feeling that I'm helping other people understand and reduce this complexity themselves. So yeah, enjoy that mentoring aspect of the job.
Yeah, I think adding more to that, one of those best things about Autodata I've seen, and it's also one of the best things for me as well, that freedom to explore new things and try it out, and no one is afraid to fail. It's fine. And at the end of the day, you end up learning something new. Even if you fail, you have ended up finding out ways not to do that thing again. So that has been one of those major takeaways for me as well, where you get supports from colleagues and mentors as well. You go out, try, and people are ready to put up their hands and help you out, pair with you. That collaboration thing which Neil mentioned as well. So those freedom aspect plays a huge, and that's what I always look forward to whenever I work within a team or across different projects as well, and that has been one of those major things.
Cool. So I'm not going to go on to the negative side, because then I like this vibe. So thinking then, so we talked a lot about the cross-discipline teams. What about as a discipline? So I know, Neil, you've talked about pairing and mentoring, but how do you come together because test engineering, it was a lot of individuals, and now it feels like we've got an identity as a team, as well as being key members in the teams themselves, the delivery team. So what does the practice itself look like? What's the rhythm of the practice? How do you get together? How do you share?
So we currently get together as a group of testers once every 2 weeks. That's for about an hour, isn't it? And we use that time to showcase something cool that we might be working on, or just to knowledge share ideas and learn from each other, or to propose an idea of like, I want to learn about this. Can someone help me with this? So yeah, just a lot of cross-pollination of ideas and having visibility of what people are working on. It does really bring. Really bring. I'm getting emotional. I'm not really. It does really bring people together, and that for me is what has really helped. Yeah,
we have a weekly stand-up as well.
Yes,
so that's once a week we meet up, and sometimes it's maximum half an hour. But we have an issues board. If we find issues, if people have questions on the test, if they come across something they don't understand or you don't like, they can raise it as an issue, and then it means we can discuss it. If we have technical tasks that we need to make the test engineering estate better, we can raise them there and then parcel them out at the weekly stand-up, and keep an eye on those technical tasks, how they're progressing. So we have that once a week, and as you said, we have the once every fortnight we meet up as a test engineering team, and we have more of a showcase type discussion and explore ideas in more depth. In the past we've had mobbing sessions and things like that as well.
Again, like over the 1 year experience of mine as well, I remember we had our meeting in the same place where all the test engineers gathered, and we had a chat about like how we are going to make this more collaborative, where test engineers come and talk about testing, share their experience, share what they have been working on, and if something it's a major takeaway from that meeting or that discussion, we can go ahead and implement within our projects. And down the line, what we can see, like we have done some amazing work across different SPAs, implementing things, pairing with other devs, pairing with other test engineers, graduates, seniors as well, and it has been help for both the people who have been pairing or learning, and it is a great learning curve. Neil has been doing some amazing work on pack testing, so that was a very new area for us to learn and understand about. And down the line, over to 6 months approach, now we are at a place where we are safe to say like we have done some incredible work, and still the work is going on. Junior test engineers as well as the grads, and as well as me also get on pair with them during our 10% time or on the Fridays as well, whenever we get some free time of our project and all, work in different projects, learn something more. So we just keep that testing thing alive within us, within the teams.
You mentioned about like grads, apprentices. So what is so just thinking external. So I'm listening to this podcast. I might want to get into test engineering. What are the routes into the industry, or specifically into Auto Trader, to become a test engineer? Is there any established routes? Obviously, you were a transfer in. Hannah and Biswa, you were both senior hires. So what about someone more junior in their career?
So we do take in graduates. We do usually do that once a year. We've had some really good hires from that, and they usually come from not specifically a computer science background, but it'll be generally they've done something in their degree that's required them to do a bit of coding, which is surprisingly quite a lot. Pretty much everything you end up coding nowadays. So yeah, they've done a bit of coding in their degree, and they've got an interest in getting into software development, and they'll have heard about test engineering and thought, okay, this sounds interesting to me, and then they'll apply to our graduate scheme, and they do go through an interview process and things. It's a nice one. Yeah. It's not a scary interview process. And there is an apprentice scheme as well. We haven't taken anyone in from that, but I'm quite keen to do that next year if we can. Yeah.
And if I was a grad coming in, I know we had a couple in the grad intake last year. So what does my experience as a grad moving into test engineering look like? Am I sat with a team, or am I in the discipline? Pairing with Neil. What would a typical route once you actually sat bums on seat at a desk?
So they'll always be assigned. It's tech mentor, isn't it? Yeah, and that's what Biswa's doing at the moment with our most recent grad intake. So they'll always be assigned a tech mentor, someone who they are pairing with a lot of the time, like shadowing quite a lot at the start, because graduates they will have come from they've just come out of uni. They won't have had a job in software testing, so they have to learn from the start. So it makes sense for them to have someone who's really experienced to teach them everything about software testing and really guide them through everything, because as you've noticed, there's a lot to learn. So yeah, that's what we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what's it like being a tech mentor as well?
I think it's a great learning experience for someone who hasn't done before or who has done, but then again, there's so much to learn as well. For me, it was like I've done it, but not at a tag assigned role as a tech mentor. So once that role is assigned, like you feel that responsibility as well, where you have to help that the person. In my case, it was a grad. Like it is a grad. He's still there with me. I'm still his tech mentor. So help him in that approach, because it's someone who is very new to testing. It will be almost an alien world kind of a place for him, and to get into that team, and if it's a very fast-paced team where there's major releases and lives happening, things can go haywire quite quickly. So that's why my role comes in, to make him feel all the nerves go settle down, make him feel familiar with the team, where he can approach if there's any issues as well. And one of those major takeaways, apart from the technologies, I've always believed, like as a tech mentor or even in my career progression, for someone you have to be very approachable as well. For the grad to come up with any problems, and you are free for him to help him understand situation and help him out, clear out all those bottlenecks as for him. So yeah, it's a great learning curve when you try to understand how you can deal with that tools and technologies, and how you can help someone settle in the team, and what you have learned and what mistakes you have done, help him in a way where he doesn't repeat those things, and how they can improve over there in their career progression. So it's a major win for both of them, and so much of learning and takeaways, I think. Yeah.
And what about again, what about more, like obviously we recruited Biswa, and we've recruited others recently. So are we always on the lookout for seniors, principals, professionals, and is the vacancies open at the moment that particularly you wanna plug?
Yes. Funny that you ask, Pete. Yeah, we've got a senior test engineer role that's about to go live right now. No, I don't know when it is. It'll be the next couple of weeks. And that's to join somewhere in our finance team. Yeah.
Finance as in, not finance as in
as
people
in
doing accounting.
The team that's building finance.
All right, so finance for
so people
consumers
can search on.
Right, okay,
is it on the it's in a couple of places on the site, but it's to allow our customers who are searching for a car to see how much it would be to finance a car over X amount of years, stuff like that. So, yeah.
And I mean, just talking about like, so that's particular like domain area. Do people rotate through the domains, or I know like your focus probably is more consumer side, so the Auto Trader website. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, Neil, do you work more on the retailer side, or you double down? Do you cross both?
So I tend to cross both. I tend to work with a few different people. I do a lot of pairing exercises. Excuse me. I do a lot of pair programming. I tend to work across a number of different domains. At the minute, I'm spending a lot of time working with Pact across different domains. Yeah. But my native domain for the last 2 years has been Engaged. Luckily, Engage is fairly quiet at the minute.
So that's one of our internal.
That's one of our internal apps, yeah, and it's a fairly quiet system at the minute. So that's where I'm based, if you like. But because that's been fairly quiet, I've been able to spread my tentacles a little bit and get involved in lots of different areas.
But thinking, Hannah, how with your other co-lead, so is it that we've got like people that double down on consumer, retailer, and apps? Is that how we're structured?
So I'd say it was a bit more strict in being structured like that in the past, but we are trying to move away from that, especially with apps. So yeah, Biswa at the moment so you're traditionally web platform based, but I suppose it is a bit of a trialing it out, seeing how it goes, of having, if you're a tester on a team, you're thinking about the entire slice of that product, so not just on web, you're thinking about it on app as well.
Right.
So that's where I see us moving to.
Okay.
Really.
So that includes, so if we've got a product that a consumer can interact with on the web or in apps, and then retailers can interact with the same product from their tools, would it cross into retailer tools as well, or would it be mainly the consumer? I'm putting you on the spot now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that is increasingly starting to happen.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
It
the
has
old
happened with part exchange. Which is
deal,
part
the
of
deal builder in general. So-
but there is going to be a limit of how much we can care about as an individual on a team, but all we can do is try it out and see the pros and cons of it, and just decide from
I think
there.
there's two things as well. Again, there's one cross-domain and cross-platform as well. Something I've been doing both. Currently, I've been doing cross-platform as well. So Deal Builder is fully there in web as well. In apps, a few parts are not there, and we want to get it live. And also, I've been working on those. So I've worked in mobile on the in my past job as well. Experience. I have that exposure as well. And it's always expected to for one test engineer to have that experience. And if not, there's a good, wonderful opportunity for this apps team. You can go there and learn as well. So I'm still there in the web consumer team, but I'm pairing with the apps testers and trying to understand how we can get to test a mobile application, our deal builder. So that there's one thing. And then again, when you're testing a whole deal builder end-to-end journey, there where your learning experience comes in, the cross-domain thing where you will reach out to Neil or someone from the retailer team to understand how the retailer side of things work to do an whole end-to-end journey. Because once for a product like Deal Builder, when you're just booking an advert, it's just not limited to booking. Then how things are on the back end side of a retailer, how that the whole order goes on from end to end. So you end up learning that. And one good example was for the part exchange. And Ahmed was one of our grad who is working in that team, and he made sure to pair with the retailers team and understand how that end-to-end testing would happen. So you eventually end up learning both those things, and because you get those opportunities across the work.
It is good to have that broad view of how it all fits in from start, like the customer on the consumer side, on an advert, and then how their behaviour there flows down into the retailer side of things. It is good to have that picture, whereas in the past I think we were very much like, oh, the consumer journey's ended here, I'm out. Kind of thing. So
in the past I think we had two major technologies. We had one, the retailer side of things, where retailers would advertise stock items, and then we had the consumer side of things, where we had essentially a big search engine with some products attached to it. And with something like Deal Builder now, we're seeing a blurring of those lines, because we see things that are advertised, people are interested in a deal, we set up a deal, and then the retailer will see that in their view of the software. So there's a lot more interaction between the two different universes now. They're not separate anymore. So that brings a lot of interest and challenges for testers.
It's definitely a positive for the
it does sound like Deal. I mean, we talked in another podcast about Deal Builder, but it does feel like Deal Builder has had those sort of benefits, as well as being a huge product that we're working on, but it's also helped like develop disciplines and develop the way we work. Was that like consciously piggybacking on it, or was it more like as it organically grew, we're like, oh, this will work nicely?
I'm not sure, actually. I know we decided to make Deal Builder our flagship product for accessibility, so I don't know if we've just continued with that mindset of like, oh right, okay, this team's done really well with a new a new thing to think about. Let's give them more things. Let's just
I think as the product went on becoming bigger and bigger, our testing also grew in that. And because it was something done from scratch, our whole testing approach was also changed as well, and that's we did a few of the changes in the way the Deal Builder is being tested. And once we did it, we understood like, wow, we have done some great work, and it's time to get this in other SPs as well. Let's share this knowledge with other teams and help them do that as well, and they will learn, and then it's just a multiplying effect where they will go in some other project and do that same approach, or if they come up with better approach, we can scrap that and then we can use that form of testing as well. So it has been like that.
So I'm going to go like right back to the top away from Deal Builder. So if I was, again, so I'm in a different organisation, I'm listening to this. You might not be, it might just be internal people listening, don't know. But I'm listening to this and go, yeah, you know what, I want to move in that direction, but I've got to convince people of the benefit. So like, I think me and you, Neil, talked about this one day, so what are the tangible benefits of moving more towards test engineering as the testing discipline? I know you can't do it in all areas, but actually what are those tangible things you could start to articulate?
So ultimately for the business, I think it's the ability to deliver more and deliver more quickly. We can deliver more ambitious projects. I think previously we were constrained maybe by, problems we had in our test estate. We were both constrained, yet we'd made huge advances, but we were still constrained by, tests that were a bit flaky, a lot of time spent investigating problems with tests that weren't necessarily representative of problems in codes. I think the ultimate benefit is we can deliver more and deliver more quickly, deliver more complex software. I think something like Deal Builder is an interesting example because that level of complexity, that's maybe a level of complexity we would have struggled with 5 years ago, much less so now.
Yeah, the frequency of how frequent we can release software is definitely one of the big positives of it. So going back to when I used to be a test analyst years and years ago, doing that, we'd have to do a massive amount of manual regression before we wanted to do a release, and it would take days and days of some just repetitive checking repetitive things, and that was slow. By the end of the 2 days or whatever, we'd just
sort of blinded by it.
It was by the you'd be so tired, your brain would be so tired that you won't be on top form. So now we can rely on automated scripts to do that repetitive work for us. It's much faster than a person doing those repetitive steps, and so we can just run it as often as we want. So in the past we used to release maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. Now we're releasing multiple times a day, and that is mostly down to us having these automated tests. It allows us to do so much.
Yeah, I think that's same on both what mentioned. Like it makes the whole process easier and smoother, isn't it? Like and that adds on to a lot of time as well for us to explore different things and make sure if the product is again a top-notch one. So that whole process of how we go about testing a product and that really helps us achieve those set standards. So it's about finding that balance and getting those, what tools are there, how you can approach that testing, going and collaborate with people. So that really helps.
Cool. And again, if I was wanting to look at other articles, things like to champion my business case or just things of interest, is there anything we've written on the engineering blog or any Medium posts or any other sites you particularly look at for inspiration around the whole move towards in this direction? If that's an actual real sentence.
Even from the start of my journey of getting into testing, I've always been obsessed with the Ministry of Testing. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And it is. The Ministry of Testing, they do conferences. I don't know if they're just UK, but I know they do have them in other parts of Europe. They do massive testing conferences, and it's pretty much everyone from the global testing community in one place. And there's so much to learn on there. There's loads of articles and there's like they used to be on Slack, but they've come off it now. I don't know what they use, but there's ways that you can just contact other testers and just try and learn from them. Sort of like what we do in our testing community here, but massive on a global scale.
Didn't know that.
So Ministry of Testing is amazing. They do local meetups as well. I remember going to my first local meetup, and it's at the BBC actually.
Oh.
It's been hosted at the BBC. They didn't provide any
I was
food,
hoping you were going to say it was hosted like in Clitheroe or something like
no.
that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It'd just be me. Hello. No, it was in Manchester. It was in Salford Keys.
Obviously the reason I say Clitheroe because that's where you're from.
Yes.
Just in
I
case
don't just
people from
go
Clitheroe
to
like,
a small,
why are you bashing Clitheroe? Love Clitheroe. Brilliant place.
Ministry of Testing, and one of my favourite testers, he is a bit of a celebrity in the testing world, Dan North.
Oh yeah,
He's got his own. Yeah, have you heard of him?
Yeah, I saw him.
You have not heard of him.
I have. I saw him go to Berlin.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Oh, right, you did.
Really
I thought you were
No,
joking.
I wasn't. I know. I know I'm not really on that, even though my title says technology, but I'm not really on the technology. So, yeah, he was really interesting.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he seemed pretty cool.
And he's got his own. He's got his own site where he posts articles and things, but he's got his own testing podcast. It's called Testing in the Pub, which has it's got one up on this, to be honest, because I think they have beer.
To beer testing.
Maybe that's an idea for next podcast. Is Bring in some
Get the beers
not
in.
low alcohol beers, seeing as it's early morning.
Low alcohol,
Yeah.
very, very professional.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you down north.
Okay.
He's a legend.
Any other additions from yourself?
Yeah,
as well?
I think same for me as well. Not in any particular website as well, but like whenever I experiment with tools and all, I constantly ask like, is there a better tool in the market which I can learn from and understand? So may I Google, and then I drill down that hole, and when you land up on few others, like we have been using Cypress, but we are aware of Playwright has also been one of those, and it's been widely used, and it has got some advantages and maybe some disadvantages also. That's a good area. So you end up learning as well. Something we did for our visual regression testing as well as accessibility. That's where we landed in few other different tools and used those ones. So chatting with your fellow colleagues as well quite helps in those tester catch-ups have been also helpful in terms of understanding if there's a new tool or something where we can experience that. So just finding out those testing gaps, and is there a better tool in the market or in the world to test those things, and you end up learning and keep doing those things.
Yeah. What about yourself, Neil?
So I've spent a lot of time with my nose buried in the documentation for products like Cypress and Pact. There's an awful lot of documentation for both of those, and trying to keep abreast of that, because I think there's often really interesting things you can do with those tools. So that's been my main focus. Certainly listening to what both Hannah and Biswa said, I think I should probably start widening my scope a little bit. But that's where I've been spending my time, looking in the API documentation for all those products.
Yeah, we're quite lucky that I feel like the documentation and things, articles that are available online and conference talks and things, there's so much more now than there used to be back in the day.
I think there's so much more to learn all the time. Like if I stumble upon a new tool and which I don't know how to use, I know I'll go on a YouTube or somewhere else and I will learn. There will tons of videos, and then you go and implement it and you learn it, and it's amazing. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, I've learned loads, because I think my last real interaction with testing was probably in 1998, and it was like a Word document that one of the lads in the back office wrote for us, on landscape, and it was like, it was the most dull thing, and I had to fill it in right by hand what I'd done to prove that it had passed it. So it has been an experience and an education, but I think we are running out of time. I'm really worried someone's going to come and knock on the door and then interrupt us. So thanks a lot for taking time out to chat. Keep going forever. No, it was brilliant. And thanks for listeners tuning in. And no doubt we'll have another podcast soon from the wonderful world of Auto Trader products and tech. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.